Love it, love it. First time I've seen the magazines. Had a wicked day today, man. Today I finally got to see the magazine in person. Done the drawing absolutely, feels like ages ago, 6, 7 months ago. So to see them kind of like all out on the magazines, I think they've done an amazing job in terms of the way they've designed it. So Sik Youth UK, who deals with grooming, and love the title as well, man. Can't core. Who's on this side? Here's the bad guys. Here's the good guys. And here's the girls that are being abused. So, I had a very productive day today. It's one of those type of days that I'm still around my sisters. My sister's not feeling well. I can't say exactly where, but obviously, because we'll get the crazies trying to come around. And I actually wasn't supposed to stay today until late. I was going to stay until later, but for certain reasons I had to stay for another 2 days. And it's just things work out weird sometimes, like in a good way. And so what I did was I decided to go to my local temple. And the problem with my local temple in my area, which is another thing that I want to go into about Sikhs, I have a problem with the committee and the political side within that temple, so I don't feel comfortable going there. And that's a shame because you should be able to just walk into your temple and not have an issue, but I do have a problem with that particular area. And so I find it difficult to go there and relax, so I don't really go there that often. When it comes to when I'm around my sisters, I pop down there all the time. She's around the corner or down the road. And so I was down there, and what a coincidence. Like I walked in, and I just went there, and I was, eating. Obviously, I went in there to pay my respects, and then I went in to kind of like eat my langar at the Gurdwara, which is a temple. And then somebody recognised me from Speaker's Corner as I was about to go home, because what I do normally, it's probably my fault. I normally walk into the temple, I keep my head down, and I just kind of like go through and I do pay my respects, and I leave. I'm not a type of person that likes to chit chat too much at the temple, if I'm being honest with you. I think it's a place of worship, and so don't talk about stuff. I don't want to get caught up into talking about bad stuff, because I think that's one of the things when you sit around and talk. Like Speaker's Corner, you start talking and you'll say things that you regret later, so I try and keep it as my kind of journey there as kind of sanitized as possible. So I go in and I go out. But luckily somebody recognized me and said, "Oh, it's you." And I was like, yeah. And I started talking to him. It was all positive, man. Loved me, the guy did. He was all right. Not everyone likes me, but this one did. He said, "What you're doing is great. Keep on doing it." And then somebody else then recognized me as well. So there was two people, and they're going up with just chatting. And then just out of the blue, someone just said, "Oh, upstairs there's a meeting or a talk being given about grooming." I was like, "Oh wow, that's And before we go on, I think there's a thingy. So before people start trying to link, what is it called? This one here. Next one to talk about grooming is grooming gangs the pedo. I'm talking about grooming gangs. I don't care what anyone thinks. I'll talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. I don't really know what the video's about now, but so if I get it wrong, the title was quite provocative, but I'm not going to stop talking about it. I don't care what people think. I'm talking about it. I'll keep on talking about it until people stop raping young girls around the country. Until they stop doing that, I'll keep on talking about it. And so I went there, and then obviously I've done the drawing for Sik Youth UK, who are doing an amazing job in terms of tackling grooming on a daily basis. The person that's the head organizer is Dippa, and I've spoken to him on the phone quite a lot of times. And I've seen him give talks and everything. And so, I haven't met him yet because he's mainly up from Birmingham. So he gives talks and everything about the dangers of grooming. And so what happens? Like God works in mysterious ways, or why do we call God Waheguru? He was upstairs that day. And so it was just so great to finally meet him, because we'd spoken to each other on the phone. I'd done the drawing for the magazine. And he's done so much amazing work with Mohan Singh, who's another organisation called Sikh Awareness Society. So I've heard his lectures, but I've never heard his lectures in real life. And so I sat inside and listened to what was going on, and it was very, very, very thought provoking. In fact, it's galvanized me more and motivated me more than ever. And I think more people need to hear these lectures to understand that what I'm saying may not be the most productive way of conveying the message, but what I am saying is true. There is a problem within the Asian Muslim community of targeting non-Muslim girls, especially, and in particular Sikh girls during the 80s and 90s, and also white girls. But I'm going to talk about Sikh girls, my community, because I've got to tackle things within my community. And so hearing the past again about everything, how it happened in the 80s and the 90s, and all the people that went to prison, all my Sikh brothers that went to prison for defending our girls' honours, and how the Sikhs have kind of mobilised together to set up these organisations. And we used to have Sher Punjab, Lines of Punjab, and how they, so many people from that organisation, and it wasn't a gang, it turned into a gang at the end, went to prison sacrificing their lives and their livelihoods as well. Remember, their careers have been affected because of the criminal record. They should be given knighthoods and they should be seen as heroes, but instead they're seen as sorry, I thought I heard something. So instead they're seen as criminals, which they're not. And so it was just such an amazing thing to finally be able to be within that group meeting with mothers and everything, and kind of relay my story in a more what I call kind of, normally when I'm talking about my situation with my cousin, it can be quite in a way in Speaker's Corner I'm constantly speaking about it, but I don't feel like it resonates with most people, or people that really don't care. But in that scenario with mothers and stuff, my story and how we combated it was taken how it should have been. That we are survivors in the sense that we managed to get my cousin back, and she's now doing okay, but obviously she's not doing great because most people that are groomed tend to be affected negatively long term. Some of them actually got Stockholm syndrome when they think they're actually in the wrong. And I keep thinking I'm hearing something. All right, yeah. So I spoke, and one of the things I've taken from that particular meeting and meeting people now from the area is that I do want to. Obviously, I'm still going to be at Speaker's Corner talking about this, until you stop doing it. I'm going to shame you into stop doing it. I'm going to shame that community into stop raping and grooming girls mercilessly for around the country. You've got to stop it. It's a disease within your community that needs to be eradicated, and you need to do it mercilessly by yourselves as well. We cannot do it for you. You've got to look within yourselves and understand going around molesting and raping girls within massive groups or even singly is completely abhorrent, and you've got to understand that. Otherwise, all that will happen is that you're going to have people like me, your worst nightmare, keeping coming up and blasting you all 24/7. I don't like doing it all the time, but I would keep on doing it if I have to do it. So I'm going to try and help in other ways as well, because I think being productive in terms of educating the community and going to the temples a bit more and talking about it and relaying the message in a more productive way is going to be good as well for me. Because right now I've got my avenue with my art. Obviously I'm going to do another piece on that artwork hopefully soon. And the fact that it's on here and it looks real amazing, man. So thanks Sik Youth UK. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. I love the design myself. I did the picture, obviously, but there's a whole load of articles in there about, how to tackle grooming, and also about other stuff as well, about this, a lot of things. It's not just about grooming, but a load of things that are affecting the Sikh youth. So, hopefully if you see this in the temple, pick it up. And I'm going to have a couple of copies with me anyway now. I've got a whole load of them, but I'm not going to give them out, obviously, to any old person, because these are going to be reserved for some Sikh festivals that I'm exhibiting at. And so I want to get the message out to, obviously, the Sikh girls. And one of the things that I was kind of like speaking about was actually not there, but generally in comments, and even one person that was there was actually said to me, it's not Islamic culture, it's Islam. And so I was like, all right, prove it to me. And why is it? Because I say Islamic culture, and when I say Islamic culture, I mean there's a suppression of sex and sexuality within the Muslim community that is much more pervasive and much more damaging than it is within the Hindu and Sikh community. Like I said, I just went to the temple now, and I was walking around with women. We was talking about grooming in front of women. So there's a sexual nature in terms of that topic. We was eating, people were cooking together, and nothing happened. It's just a healthy day out where you're standing and talking next to the opposite sex, and nothing happens. It's not like we're going crazy. So our kind of way of looking at the opposite sex, I think, is much more healthier. And so you have the Muslim community, which is totally separated when it comes to religion, and then you have all of these kind of restrictions about having to cover up totally, having to lower your gaze, and having to not shake hands, and all of this kind of stuff. So yeah, I put that down to culture, because being traditional and being um, kind of modest is a good thing in my opinion. If you're not a big deal, but if you do, it's a good thing. But that doesn't mean you go around degrading women that are not modest and thinking that they're available for your satisfaction. Whereas I think that within the Muslim community you have this suppression of sexual urges, and you're telling a man that this and that, you can't mix with women, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, and that just causes a tension and a sexual tension within a man. Some men are very sexual, some people are not that sexual. I think I've never really been that sexual, but like I said in that other video, I've known people that are like frothing at the mouth 24/7. And when I say frothing at the mouth, I don't mean like literally, but they have their sexual urges are like so overwhelming that anything that moves, they seem to be kind of like kind of that they can't control their behaviour. And so you hear them saying or doing or behaving in ways that I think is unbecoming. And so but someone said to me, and this is kind of what Tommy Robinson says, and I kind of differ on Tommy Robinson on the causes of the grooming. Tommy Robinson and some other people say it is definitely to do with Islam, and directly to do with Islam, and so they're telling people to within the faith, it kind of is like obligatory to kind of groom and basically subjugate women and everything like that. And this is not necessarily what I think, but this is what I was told. And some of the things I kind of was like, all right, I need to research, I need to really understand a bit more. So one of the things was, obviously I say that the separation between men and women is so extreme that it can cause deviation within men's urges and nature. Like a Catholic priest who has to be celibate, he then becomes deviant. So you need a bit more of a healthy kind of outlook on the opposite sex, especially within a culture now where sex is like, and women dress in particular ways that are not modest, and so you are going to see things that are going to test your resolve. And if you're not mentally equipped to be able to combat those urges, then you've got an issue. You're going to go around doing things like they're doing like grooming and raping. It will happen. So I spoke to like the Sik Youth UK, and I said they got around 90 cases. They've actually got around 40 cases. I had it mixed up with the SAS, Sikh Awareness Society. So they've got around 90 cases. So between them, they've still got around 120, 130 cases going on. And, I was shocked to hear that stuff is happening in London as well, because I've been told London is more it's not so bad, but it's still happening in London. I'm just not hearing about it. I need to get back into the community and really start figuring out how prevalent it is around London as well. Because I want to kind of start helping more hands-on and trying to help people and give them ways to kind of combat these groomers. Because I think I've got the experience to understand the mentality of some of the young girls that are being manipulated. And so obviously my cousin was manipulated, and I can see what they did to get her, and try and warn other people about not to fall for those traps. Obviously, I'm going off the topic, but I'll go back on. So I was talking about the fact that some people are saying it's to do with Islam, including Tommy Robinson, and one of the main things, which I think is an argument that you can't easily dismiss, is the fact that Islam has a something which is called what your right hand possesses, and I've always found that particular kind of what I call idea quite repulsive. And that's actually in the Quran, from my understanding, not just the Hadiths. I've always said I think the Hadiths are more problematic. So in the Quran it says, what your right hand possesses, and obviously that means any spoils of war, like women, are what your right hand possesses. So you can have 4 wives and what your right hand possesses, and that kind of concept of having being able to have sex slaves within a faith is in my opinion, like listening to somebody you're speaking to, very, 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 very damaging to somebody's mind, in the sense that if I read in my particular faith that we are allowed to have sex slaves, I'd be questioning, like, what is that about? Like, why would you be allowed to have sex slaves? Now, does sex slavery happen? Yes, it does happen. Does sex slavery happen after wars? Yes, it does. But should a faith or a religion permit it? No, it shouldn't. A religion or faith should be outlawing things that are impermissible and that are wrong. You don't say, oh, it's going to happen anyway. We might as well just kind of legalize it and make it more prettier. Because what you're doing is almost like putting flour around a piece of dog shit. Slavery is a piece of dog shit. And what you're doing is like, oh, let's pretty it up and say, oh, we got some legal rulings. You can't do this, you can't do that, and put some flowers around it. Now, I am saying that slavery is dog shit because it's an evil kind of ideology to think that you can enslave another person, and especially when you have sex slaves. So I do agree with him on that. If people are reading these particular passages and think that having sex slaves is normal, even in times of war, forget about because people can say it's in times of war. No, even in times of war, it's wrong. Yeah, look at that. Even in times of war, it's wrong. Yeah, even in times of war, it's wrong. You can't justify it through a faith. You have to understand that this is wrong and outlaw it and say no, we don't agree with it. But if people do it, they've done it, but we can look down upon it. The other thing was this kind of idea that you can have 4 wives, and a lot of faiths have the idea of having more than one wife, and even the gurus, our gurus, have more than one wife. I can't really go into it right now, but the reasoning I hear from Muslims about more than one wife is not really for political reasons, because why would a man in Islam who has 4 wives be doing it for political reasons? What political reason has he got? So a lot of times when people married more than one wife, it was normally for political reason. But a random dude, I've seen people with 4 wives in East London. What is the reasoning? So the reasoning is, oh well, a man has natural urges that need to be kind of met, and so if he needs more than one wife, rather than cheating extramaritally, give him another wife. Yeah, and that in itself, once again, is kind of giving a man this kind of, oh, this man is a uncontrollable beast. Like, he cannot control himself. He might even need 4 wives. Yeah, I mean, if 1 isn't enough, 4 might be enough. 5 might be enough. 6 might be enough. Yeah, and so you have this kind of like what I call a real kind of unhealthy idea of a man, and his urges being kind of carnal, and you can't control them. So the only way to control him is to give him like 4 wives, yeah, or to think you're even during times of war, sex slaves. And then you have that was another thing, and then you have obviously one of the other things that was mentioned I thought was quite interesting, which I never really thought about, was I was told that, oh well, there is this thing, I think, I'm not sure if it's in the Quran or if it's in these, that you have a process of reprimanding your wife. And so, you can first of all admonish them from the bedroom, tell them off, then admonish from the bedroom, and then you can lightly hit them. Now, I've heard this a lot, and I've heard some of the most ridiculous excuses made for this particular punishment. Oh, it's just lightly with a stick, as long as you don't bruise them, don't touch their bodies. the point is you're missing the whole point. The fact that you're saying that it's okay to punish another human being um, who's a female is belittling that particular female or the females in general. And so obviously if that wasn't in part of a religion and there was just some random cult or whatever doing it, even all right, it's a bit crazy. But when you've got a faith that is condoning it, it's pretty abhorrent. And so you then have the other thing I was told was I'm not going to say the guy's name because you'll get into a lot of trouble, but about the 72 virgins in heaven. I mean, it's so sexualized. I remember Ali, I can't remember who it was, one of the major kind of guys, Dawa. It could have been Musa Adnan or one of those guys. And they went to this kind of like fair for Islam. And he was asking these people, all these youngsters, oh, what do you want in Jannah, which is heaven? And every single one, every time he asked the question, except for you know what, meaning except for the 72 virgins. So he knew every man was thinking about the 72 virgins first and then everything else afterwards. Like even he had to preface his questions with that. And I think that's very, 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 very kind of like what I call destructive in terms of a man's attitude towards women, man's attitude towards sex, because you're saying to these kids as they're growing up, when you die, your reward is going to be women in heaven. That cannot be something that is uh, productive in terms of your outlook on women in general. So you're having this situation obviously where men are looking at women very sexualized as an object. This is what you're going to get a reward in heaven. You're going to have 72 virgins. You can have sex slaves. You can have this. You're allowed to reprimand them. They need to be covered up head to toe. And so all of this stuff, I can, is it related to Islam? Yeah, I mean, that is. You can say that is related to Islam. And the last thing, which was probably the most controversial one, is that the idea of love jihad, about, getting a girl to fall in love with you. And I think that happens a lot. And that's not necessarily grooming, but that's more of a grooming in the sense that, not the grooming in a traditional sense where you prostitute them, but grooming in the sense that you get the girl specifically because she's Sikh or Hindu or white, and then you groom her to the point where she then falls in love, and then you can then convert her to your faith. And they call that love jihad, and I do believe that happens. I've met loads of especially Hindu girls that have converted, and you can see that they were almost like trophies. Oh, we've converted this one, and so there is a problem in that sense as well. So is it totally dismissible that it's to do with Islam? No, I can see how other people could come to that conclusion. This is kind of Tommy Robinson's take, so I can't outright dismiss it. I still believe my particular version or ideas is a bit more broader, so it kind of encapsulates a bigger demographics of people. So yeah, I've had a really great day today, man. I mean, I'm so glad I stayed at the temple. I was only supposed to be there for an hour, and I learned a lot today. I got a lot of, support as well, and it's nice for people to support me and say, "Carry on, brother." Just carry on the fight. And so, it gives me strength as well. I know that not all Sikhs agree with me, but I think when it comes to the grooming issue, yeah, I think we're unison. We may not all agree with the message or the way people deliver it, but I think we're all in unison who the perpetrators are. Better get a better thingy. So we're all in unison about who the perpetrators are. We know who they are. We all know who's going to protect our girls. So, those guys need to stop going around raping girls in mass numbers. It's very simple. A lot of people keep saying, how do you stop it? You just stop going around raping. It's not overly complicated. So, to the Asian Muslim community, sort your house out. Yeah, I'm going to keep on saying it until you do. I'll be 80 years old still saying it if you don't start sorting your house out. Sort your house out. It's very simple. You police your own community, and when you find somebody that's grooming or doing something of a sexual nature with a girl or a young girl, you just shop them to the police. You don't need to be a vigilante and do that kind of stuff, but you need to shop them to the police. So I'll be dishing these out to my young sisters, the Sikhs, so they can kind of educate their daughters to realize who the perpetrators are and who the people are to kind of protect us. And anyway, look how many I got a whole box. I'm so happy. Look at that. Look at that. Anyway, see you later, man.